This is Andrew Hada from Nothing Ventured Media. I want to tell you about all the feature films we've made and how you can see them right now. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one's a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. The documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, A Family of Fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. And if that's not enough for you, Hada Films is home to all of our short films. So take a look around and see what you like. Spend your day with Hada Films and Nothing Ventured Media. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. Hey, what's up, guys? The following episode, it's kind of an old episode. We're on a little bit of vacation for the holidays. So if you didn't know, we used to do a little bit more in-depth episodes for the YouTube. We would use video clips, we'd use audio, just kind of giving more context. But they kept getting taken down by YouTube because of copyright strike, even though it's fair use. And so it would be a lot of fighting back and forth, and it got to the point where it wasn't worth it for us to edit them because, we started testing to see how you guys would like the live podcast, and it seems like you guys did, so we decided to kind of go with that route so we didn't have to constantly be fighting with YouTube, especially with production and all that stuff getting on our end. So yeah, but we still like these episodes, so we're going to bring you an old episode that we did. This is one of our first episodes, actually. And then we'll go along, but check it out. Hope you like it, and then hopefully this gets us back to normal. What's worse than radioactive dinosaurs? Radioactive caca. This week on our first ever episode of Godzilla. Welcome to the Bomb Squad, where we appreciate the underappreciated. I'm your host, Andrew Hada. I'm here with my co-host, Joshua Epp. And today, we're talking about the King of the Monsters. Especially because his movie Kong vs. Godzilla is coming out soon. Probably this week. And I know all of you are excited, and I know you can't wait to continue the adventures of Coach Taylor as he talks to Godzilla. I don't know what his role is. All I know is he's wrong.
Yeah.
So today we figured to talk about one of the Godzilla movies, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, or Godzilla versus Hedorah, if you want the correct term. Josh, tell us what this movie's about.
Godzilla fights a smog monster, mostly.
And there you have it. Let me start off by saying, if you are in a state where marijuana is legal and you decide to take an edible, do not watch Godzilla versus the Smog Monster because you'll be so confused. I feel like either way you're going to be confused. But even more so if you're on an edible and you're going to be like, what the fuck is this?
Actually, to level the playing field, I also took something before watching it just to see how it would go. I could follow it, though. I mean,
I could follow it. It's just like...
Yeah.
It's more just a movie in general.
It
But
is, and it does have some like very like kind of trippy like it'll cut to a cartoon, and at first I thought the cartoon was part of like a news broadcast, but it's just a cartoon, like unrelated to this. It's just like, oh, here's also what's happening in cartoon form, in case you didn't get it, you know. So
yeah,
that kind of stuff threw me off.
yeah,
But overall,
the cartoon, like, well, we'll talk about it in a bit. But the first reason that I wanted to pick Godzilla versus Hedorah is because anyone who knows me knows that I love Godzilla. More so the Toho version than like the new American ones, or Shinzilla. For shame, Shinzilla, you suck. Um, Also, when I was a kid, like the only way you could watch Godzilla was on the Spanish channels. So I always thought that Godzilla was from Mexico, and that was the whole thing. It took me a while to realize that he was from Japan, because it's not like they're showing you the first one. They only show you like Godzilla versus Megalon with Jet Jaguar.
I mean, it's a bunch of Japanese people.
Yeah, but at the time, I didn't know that like different races lived in different places, so I just thought
Yeah,
everyone lived.
it's that.
Everyone lives in the
I did.
same.
I actually also saw this specific one as a kid, and I only remember that because of the part where the cat is like trying to get out of it. Like that's all I remembered from watching this as a kid. Like,
Oh yes, I don't think I've ever seen this movie, but I feel like I have. It's hard to tell.
yeah,
But
yeah. Some of
Godzilla.
them blend together.
Yeah. Also, I like that if you watch these old Godzilla films, it like starts off with Janus films. Like the Janus symbol is like what they use for like all those Criterion Collection movies, or a bunch of them. But I only know
Yeah.
him from Godzilla because they did all the Godzilla films for no real reason. I don't know why, but it's always funny because most people, when they think of Janus films, they think of like highbrow artsy films, and when I see it, I always think of Godzilla, and I'm always disappointed when it's like the fucking violinist or something.
Right.
Also, this movie is interesting because it starts off with a theme song.
Yeah, like a Bond style.
Yeah,
theme
like with a
song almost.
But my favorite thing is like in Bond, like if you listen to like the one from Casino Royale, you can like listen to that wherever because it just sounds like a regular song. But the Godzilla version was like, "Hey, we're all gonna die. Stop polluting, or we're gonna die anyway. You're gonna die. Who cares?"
Yeah, there is a very what I'd actually appreciate about this movie, which it's almost weirdly fatalistic for the 70s when it came out, but it's way more relevant today of the like, oh no, the environment's done. Like we've already messed up. It's too late. Like that's how the song goes. It's like, yeah, no. There's no more like clean air. We're over. Bye. It's
Yeah, like
okay.
we're fucked. FYI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, the smog monster Hedorah is it's like when Godzilla was made through radiation. All there was a bunch of sludge and caca and poo poo and shit, um, like that fed off into the ocean, and so that became its own kind of creature. It mixed with a
A tadpole.
mixed with a tadpole, and it became like this big pile of shit.
I will say, like, and we'll probably get into this, how almost always the human parts in Godzilla movies are bad. This movie has some good human parts in it, defying my expectations, but it also has a lot of sequences where they explain scientifically how Hedorah works, like at least 3 different times. And
Yeah,
that's one of those.
they really
you're
go
like,
hard on who Hedorah is. They're like, just in case you don't know, he's a big pile of shit, and they don't
Yeah,
ever.
because they speculate what he is at the beginning, like, well, maybe he's a mutated tadpole, and then they do a bunch of tests. They're like, well, we tested the radium in this soil, and he is. It's like, okay, so you were right the whole time. Why did you keep
But they
explaining
keep
it?
doing tests on the tadpole. I feel like that guy just wants to fuck up tadpole.
Yeah.
So they like follow a father and his son around. Like those are the main characters. I don't give a shit about any human characters in any Godzilla movie, including you, Millie Bobby Brown or whatever that girl's name is.
Yeah, there's a lot of, oh man, now he's playing. Now he's playing on the beach. It's like,
You know what's weird is
just
that
cut.
at the beginning he's like playing with a Godzilla toy, and he has a King Ghidorah toy. But like, would you really? I mean, I know that Godzilla's kind of a hero, but would you really want to play with like a toy of like, oh, it'd be like playing with a Pearl Harbor toy. It's like I don't really want this.
Yeah.
Especially if you live in Japan where he constantly is for no reason, just wanting to attack.
Yeah, there is that is like my favorite through line because even in movies like this where he's a hero, he does come across Godzilla as like an aggressive asshole
Yeah,
who's just incidentally fighting what's in front of him, you know?
I do like that in this movie. So Godzilla comes out. They find out that that Hedorah is there, and like Godzilla like finds him, and then Godzilla's just like, I'm just gonna kill this thing for no real reason.
Well, I actually should say too, the first shot of Godzilla, I loved it because it's like a sunset,
Oh
and then it's
yeah, it
just
was super
Godzilla
cool.
walking into frame, and it almost plays like a little western type of theme, and it's like he's like the sheriff rolling into
And
town.
it
You
makes
know?
no sense because it's the beginning of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's not the end.
Um, but the first thing he does is he like I think he knocks over Hedorah and then he just immediately
Like
like
shoots him.
starts blasting his limp body on the ground. It's like the equivalent of like shooting the villain like after he's
And
fallen over to make sure
keep
he's dead.
keep in mind, Hedorah at this point has attacked the humans a few times. He has not attacked Godzilla once. Godzilla just wanted to kill him for no reason. I also like that, like if you think about it, because they're like, oh yeah, the same fallout from the nuclear blast that created Godzilla also created Ghidorah, and like it's like, man, like talk about the fucking wrong end of the stick with like it's like, oh yeah, you could be a lizard that literally can't be harmed and just does cool shit all the time, or you could be a big pile of shit.
He's like I took it to be because there is this kind of cool like you know who he does remind me of a little bit is the like toxic puddle from Creep Show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That attacks the boy in the lake, but like they just put eyes on it, and they're like, "Hey, it's a puddle with eyes."
Yeah, before we
Just-
continue, let's talk about Godzilla's fucking costumes in this movie. Because even though this movie's pretty good, this is the worst fucking costume. Like Godzilla looks terrible. He looks
he
like
does.
he
He
looks
does
like
look like Bargain Bin Godzilla. You
yeah,
know?
he looks like he bit his tongue and he's constantly like trying not to bite it again. And then Hedorah's supposed to be like the blob essentially, like this big sludge, but he just kind of looks like a Pac-Man ghost. It's like, but not even like a real life version of the Pac-Man ghost, like a toy version. Like his eyes are very clearly plastic.
Yeah, as a kid, I remembered him being menacing, but his eyes are so like big and cartoonish.
Yeah.
Like it does take you out of it a little
Like,
bit.
why didn't they give him like tadpole eyes, but they give him big red like goofy eyes?
You could tell too that they were proud of the eyes because the very first time a human sees him in the ocean, it literally pauses and does a freeze frame zoom in onto the eyes.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
shots where you just see like Hedorah's eyes in the water, and it's like you guys need to stop doing these fucking shots. They're so bad. Okay, so this is in the era where Godzilla is he's a hero, but like they even like you can even tell because they call him Superman at one point. So this movie is obviously geared towards children, but I wonder if it really is because like yeah, like we were saying earlier, there's like these random cuts into cartoons, and I thought the same thing because the first one comes at the end of a newscast, so you think it's part of the newscast, but no, it's just a cartoon to explain what Hedorah's doing, even though we see Hedorah doing it. But then they also make the cartoon look terrifying when you're on edibles.
Yeah, the cartoon is almost more menacing, but it'll cut from like the very first thing I think Hedorah does when he comes onto land is he like sucks the smog out of a factory and grows bigger. And then the cartoon just shows him like sucking the smog out, growing bigger, and kind of smiling about it. And it's like, well, I assumed he liked it. I didn't need a cartoon. to
Yeah,
tell me
it's like, well, he
that
keeps doing it.
enjoyed
I figured this out. Also, I figured out what he looks like. There's like these things in Sesame Street that go blah 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 blah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hedorah,
I don't know what they're
Hedorah,
called, but
he looks exactly like those things. It is not menacing at all. But yeah, the dad is like a scientist, and he's trying to figure out why tadpoles are getting bigger, and he runs into Ghidorah. But like, he's gonna go under the water to figure it out. And he tells his son like, "Hey, give me 30 minutes, and then I'll be back." And his son is like, okay. And then 30 minutes pass because he gets attacked by Ghidorah, and the son is just like sitting on the beach, being like, Dad, Dad. And I was like, is this for kids? Because this is the most gruesome fucking way for a son to lose his dad is to watch, is to watch him. And then it just cuts, and you're like, wait, did he die?
Yeah, then it like cuts to him in bed, but like half his body has been burned horribly
By
by Hedorah.
radiation? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
such a
green
weird.
burns. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, well, at least they didn't kill his dad. But then later on, he's like running home, and his dad catches on fire from his radiation burn, and then he turns into a skeleton, and then he turns into sludge. And I was like, oh no, that was way worse for his son to see.
There is definitely some inconsistency with what Hedorah does because sometimes he'll be flying overhead and everyone below him will immediately die. At one point, you see a cat and then later a baby in the sludge just looking kind of annoyed and scared. And then, like, later, if it even touches you, you immediately become a skeleton. You know, it's just
Yeah.
whatever the scene needs.
I do also, I do
He
also
kills
like
you that much.
that the skeleton turning into a skeleton is as silly as you think it would be when you're Toho and you only have like $5 to do it.
Yeah, because it's like a construction worker, and then he gets burned, and then the only thing left are his bones and like his hat and then his construction vest.
Yes.
It's like it burned the rest of his clothes, but not the ones that tell you what his job was.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
fun. And then it, like I said, it's like a cartoon. And then, okay, so Godzilla tries to beat up Hedorah, and he kind of stops him the first time, but then Ghidorah comes back bigger and stronger.
Yeah, actually, like what he does is he like punches through Hedorah, like punches into his brain, I think. Then Hedorah jumps into the ocean, and then it just cuts to Godzilla just jumping in after him.
Oh my god, when he jumped in after him. And the funniest thing is Godzilla jumps in after him, and then he lands because the water's not that deep. And then he just kind of walks off, and I was like, Godzilla, you are a clod. And then he just kind of gets away, and he's like, all right, I'm fucking done with this. So then...
Yeah, he kind of shrugs it off, essentially.
Yeah, Godzilla will fight you, but then he gets bored. So then Godzilla like fights him again, and Hedorah's like less inclined to get beat by him. And so they're like trying to figure out how to stop Hedorah and help Godzilla. But then like some of the humans, including the main character, like the boy and his dad, are like, Hedorah, when he flies through the air, he does radiation. And when Godzilla shoots him, it creates more radiation. So let's just go party because the world's going to end.
Yeah, there's actually to speak to almost the environmentalism of this movie. I do feel like it's more relevant now, and there's a couple scenes like that where, yeah, because they decide they're all doomed. The kid's uncle, I guess, is the other character
Yeah, I
we're
think
following is
so.
like, oh, I'm just gonna get like 100 people, and we're just gonna play music on top of this mountain because Hedorah hasn't polluted it yet. And he even says the line, "The good green earth only exists in our heart now." As he's like playing the guitar, and I'm like, that's like the most nihilistic thing I've ever
Yeah,
heard.
and it's even weirder because at this point, like, everything kind of looks the same. Like, Hedorah hasn't done that much for them to already be giving up.
Yeah. And that's almost like the idea is almost like, oh, it's already like super polluted, like past like anything in Hedorah is just like finally coming in to finish it off, if not for Godzilla stopping him almost.
Like, if you're gonna watch this movie, there's so many fucking musical numbers. Like, they go to a club, and then they're
See, I
partying.
do like the club scene though.
They're
Yeah,
partying at the
it's like
club,
he's
and then
Go
it
ahead.
cuts to Godzilla fighting, and then they go back to the club.
it's and this is almost what I liked is that I'm like, oh man, was this scene as cool in 1970s Japan because it's like a woman in like a seaweed body stocking, just like singing.
Yeah, it looks like the Austin Powers like cutscenes, but it looked like, but like what they would really look like, not someone recreating them. And then there's like a scene where the guy, I don't even know who's in there, but he's like watching, and then everyone's heads turn to fish heads.
Yeah, he's like freaking out and having like a trip before Hedorah attacks. This is just him.
Yeah, he was
This
pulling an Andrew because I was also seeing fish heads in the club.
and the woman is also singing. I don't know if she's singing the song from the beginning or a different song, but it's still about how we're all gonna die and there's nothing we can do about it.
It is a different song about how the earth is fucked, but it also plays twice. I feel like they like that song better and they're like, just play it again. Yeah, there's weird club scenes and they have very little to do with anything.
See, I kind of took it as like, oh, people like because they're even kind of saying it in the club, like they know the Earth is fucked, but they're kind of like, oh, there's really nothing we could do, so let's just like party, you know?
Yeah, which I appreciate that. But then then the weird thing is that, okay, so then they're partying, and then the kid gets like a telepathic message from Godzilla. And,
Oh yeah,
and he's like, Godzilla's coming. I'm like, wait. You guys need to like back up a little bit.
see, Godzilla really appreciated that he had his action figure, so he's like, I
Yeah.
can trust you.
He's
Yeah.
like, but he also has a King Ghidorah action figure. I don't know why. I don't know why he has two of me. But yeah, so he talks to the kid telepathically just to tell him that he's nearby, and then they're like, oh no. But then they don't really do anything. They just kind of hang around.
Yeah, at one point, even after Hedorah has already attacked, like probably twice, they cut to just the family, like on a roller coaster. It's like,
Yeah, what was that
it's
about?
like, all right, I could see why normal people wouldn't take Hedorah seriously, but you scientists and your son above all people should know, like the threat, because then they have to get off the roller coaster because Hedorah's coming. Um, I enjoyed it though.
Yeah, I think that
That seemed unrealistic before the pandemic, but now I kind of feel like I'm like, okay, people would.
people would be partying and they'd be like, you can't take away my freedoms, Godzilla, as they turn to skeletons. Would people stay inside and wear masks more if the alternative was turning to skeletons? Because I want to say yes, but who knows?
Probably not. Although actually, one of the cartoons that I did like, because they don't ever address it outside of the cartoon, is when Hedorah has really ramped up killing people. It cuts to like anti-Hedorah masks for sale, but it just shows that they don't work and you still turn into a skeleton. And I could totally see people doing that, just being like, oh yeah, I'll just buy this like thing. And
Yeah.
then, you know.
I'll just get this vaccine, guys. Don't let Joe Biden and the lamestream media convince you that vaccines work. But yeah, it is like, yeah, I feel like this is one of the weird movies where I would have liked to see more random people, like
Yeah,
random
they do.
people.
They do also kind of near the end, and it's a little too isolated. But they have like a news segment of like people arguing about how to stop Hedorah, and like no one can agree. And some are like, "Oh, we have to use fire," and someone's like, "Oh, we have to do this. We have to do this." And it cuts to like 4 talking heads, and then it cuts to like 30 talking heads all talking over each other. And I was like, "Oh man, did Japan have shows like this back then, or were they just like accurately predicting like CNN and Fox News now?" You know what I mean? Like it was weirdly like relevant to today.
Yeah, it was definitely like
It
weird
was also a little intense to handle when you're on something.
when you're out of it. Yeah, I agree. I agree that it was a little bit much, and I did not.
It was a real relief when Godzilla would show back up, and then you'd be like, okay, I could just focus on Godzilla fighting this thing again.
Yeah, and okay, so then they figure out that electricity hurts it, but then something happens. Okay, so Godzilla, because Hedorah tries to eat Godzilla, and he like picks him up and flies away in the most adorable scene where Godzilla's taken like a baby, and so then in retrospect, then like. He starts fighting Hedorah, and Hedorah's winning. And then Godzilla's like, okay, what do I do now? And he's like, oh, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly away. So Godzilla, like, flies to go meet him.
Yeah, we should clarify how he flies. He crouches into, like, a fetal pose and turns on his breath and then flies through the air backwards.
Yeah, he is very adorable.
While in this fetal pose with his tail like
And-
curled up with his legs. It is baffling. He also does one move that I like where he's like punching it out with Hedorah, and then he like moves his tail to like smack a rock to make Hedorah look at his tail, and then it cuts to Godzilla just punching him in the face.
He does like.
I do like Godzilla.
And there's like a lot of
like,
scenes where
being tricksy
Godzilla
like that.
it's Hedorah's knocked out, but Godzilla will still pick him up and slam him into the ground just like for no real reason because he's already knocked out. And then even at the end, okay, so Godzilla like brings him to these metal towers they set up. Then he just keeps electrifying him until he turns to dust. But even after he turns to dust, then Godzilla like looks at the people and then just starts beating the shit out of the dead body.
He's like ripping him apart, and he like either pulls out, I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be eggs or Hedorah's eyes, but he pulls out like two big balls and then specifically like melts those too. They're like glowing. He does rip out several of Hedorah's organs at the end, like non-specific organs. He's just ripping pieces off of them. But then he holds those two up and then makes it a point to fry those. And I don't know if those are supposed to be tadpole eggs or just like, oh, here's like Hedorah's eyes.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what Godzilla's doing or why or he's like killing them just for no real reason. Which I did enjoy.
It is. There is kind of this weird element too, where you've seen more Godzilla movies than me, but in the ones where it's a hero, it's like they want to acknowledge how many people die, but they also want to gloss over it. You know,
you can't like Godzilla. He's gonna kill some people. Like there's gonna be some dead people in your Godzilla thing because he's like a big monster. Yeah, and that's why like I hate I don't hate them, but like that's my problem with the newer ones where they're like in the first Godzilla movie they were like, oh, Godzilla hero or beast. It's like he's clearly a beast because he just destroyed all of San Francisco.
Oh, in the modern US one.
Yeah. And then in like the other one they're like, oh, all these people have been evacuated, but you still see them like running. It's like, oh, those people are dead.
Yeah, and they don't really. They also go like gloss over that too, like a lot in the U.S. one. I actually thought it was funny that the sequel. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one with Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh yeah, King of the Monsters.
The mom is like part of a terrorist group that's trying to stop climate change, and I don't remember how. But it is funny that it was like, oh, it's an environmental message, but this like Godzilla versus the smog monster seems like a smarter environmental movie.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
Despite being for children, you know?
Like, yeah. Because I feel like in this one, they had to deal with the ramifications that the smog monster was just going to get worse and worse until everyone was dead, you know?
Yeah.
Where in the other one, it's just kind of like a byproduct for no real reason.
Yeah, they kind of mention it. They're like, oh, she's doing it to stop climate change. But then, like, at the end, she stopped, and it's like, well, I guess we'll still all die from it. But at least they're like trying to talk about like solutions in Godzilla versus the smog monster.
Yeah, and then at the end, Godzilla gives them a look like, hey, you fucking idiots. Stop polluting the planet or I'll kill you. I'll kill you next. Where in this one, Godzilla's like, thanks, humans. Thanks for ruining the whole fucking planet. Actually, they don't ever really resolve the climate thing. They just like show Godzilla being the best.
They just kind of, and they do say like, oh, mankind could defeat it if we all come together. And the idea is almost like you don't know if they will, but maybe they will now that Hedorah's gone. And I mean, obviously that, I assume most Godzilla movies aren't about the environment after this, so
yeah,
this goes unaddressed.
Apparently there was going to be another Hedorah versus Godzilla, but they didn't like it, Toho, and they were like,
what I did like too, and I guess because you watched this from HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
The translation at the end, because you know how like it would be like James Bond will return or like to be continued, and this one it was will there be another question mark?
Yeah. And then it just showed a dead eye in the water.
It's like and obviously we know they made several Godzilla sequels, but I do like that way of phrasing it.
But no, I think this is one of the better Godzilla movies.
Yeah, no, I'd say so. I mean, there are like obviously still the human scenes are like mostly bad, especially the ones where they just talk about the science behind Hedorah. Like that's bad in every Godzilla movie though. But the kind of surreal ones of them like in a club or like dancing on a mountain, it's like you do enjoy it a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, it definitely feels very 80s. It's not trying, I mean, very 70s, where they do have like the hippies and the weird music and stuff. It's
Yeah.
quite entertaining. I like it.
Yeah, the scores definitely has a very like
Oh no,
70s feel.
I didn't like the score. The score, like, it sounded disappointed that this was the movie that it was scoring. It was like, wah, wah.
Yeah. I
It's.
enjoyed how muted it was.
I just think like my favorite Godzilla movies are the ones where it has something to say and also where Godzilla's kind of a dick. And this movie hit all the nails. It hit all the nails on the because he was like, why are you acting like this, Godzilla? And he's like, I don't like that you guys created this monster out of my shit. So I'm gonna kill him, even
Yeah,
though
it was
he's
very
technically not at fault. Oh, I
it,
do.
oh, go ahead.
One of the things I liked is that at the beginning, when they find out that he's drinking sludge, they're like, "What if we just let him do that? Won't it? Won't it be good?" Like if he, like, isn't it like they kind of thought that they had done that thing where they ate themselves around the problem and had gotten back to the beginning, and it's like, oh, we dug ourselves through the other side where we created a monster that'll just eat our pollution. And then they were like, "No, that's not how it works." But
Yeah, I did that. That's very like that is kind of like the whole like climate change. Like, well, what if we shoot particles into the atmosphere? It's
yeah,
like, please don't do that.
isn't what if we make the Earth so hot? Won't that be more beachfront property? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, I did kind of enjoy how much the kind of like solutions the humans try unsuccessfully just very much are what humans are still trying today, like trying to like
yeah,
kind of bargain their way out of really having to like make a difference, you know?
yeah, they definitely like, oh, we're not gonna try, but we're not gonna try, but we're gonna hope things work out. And there's just like one dude who's actually doing the work, and everyone else is having a fucking kumbaya at the fucking mountaintop, partying in the club. But yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like there's this movement towards getting away from the original Godzillas, but they're so like this one especially is so weird and it's so unique that it's like how can you not? Like the newer ones are very generic blockbuster movies, but this one it's like is there even a main character because the main character
Yeah.
turns into a skeleton and the little kid is annoying as shit.
Yeah, I don't even. I realized after I was like, the uncle is like the third main character because he's the one in the club, and then later he's the one like leading the hippie like circle on the mountain. I don't even know what happens to him. Like that's how like little that part
Yeah.
matters, you know.
I do like at the end that the kid is like Godzilla, Godzilla, and then he looks at him and he's like, "Shut up, kid!" And then he walks away.
It is strange, like because this movie does totally work as being like, oh, we're destroying the environment, like a monster's coming. The idea that Godzilla is also like the war, like the nuclear fallout, doesn't really work with him being like the hero of this movie. But I almost appreciate that like they just loved Godzilla so much. They're just like, let's just make him good in most of his movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if there was like a conscious decision to like make that switch or just kind of gradually happened, you know? You might know more about it than
I think
me,
the
but-
concept decision was money. Well, no,
Yeah, I
I
just feel
think
like,
like
oh.
as Godzilla kind of moved away from being a horror film and towards being like a kids film, obviously you had to make someone the good guy. And that's where he gets more sentient. This one's kind of in the middle, but there's like Godzilla movies where he's clearly like talking to the humans. Or he has like very human mannerisms where he'll like do like the fist pump or he'll punch more.
Yeah.
Or in
Yeah, I
this
think
one, he kind of uses.
this is a good middle ground, I think, where
Yeah.
he's clearly still a beast and he clearly is like thinking, but he's not actually communicating like very much. You just can kind of guess at what he's doing, you know?
Yeah, like if you watch Godzilla versus like Megalon, he's like fucking punching people and like high fiving Jet Jaguar and shit,
Yeah.
which is cool. But it kind of moves away where it's like a kid's movie. This one's like kind of getting there, but it's still trying to have a very important message, and I feel like that kind of puts it above and it makes it more fun to talk about because sometimes you talk about how climate change is killing our environment and we might already be too late. And sometimes you can talk about how Godzilla cannonballs into the shallowest pool he could fucking find. Makes himself look like a big dork. Also
good.
like this one because he shoots that thing like without hesitation. It's never like, oh, maybe Godzilla's gonna try something else. He's like, nah, I'm gonna keep shooting him. He's gotta die eventually. I appreciate that level of stubbornness.
His shooting and punching it gets him through it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, good for you, Godzilla. But yeah, I think this is a short episode. I'm excited for Godzilla versus King Kong. I like the
I don't know if I liked either of those movies, but
yeah, I didn't like the first one because it didn't have enough Godzilla and we followed boring humans. Which if we're gonna follow boring humans, there has to be at least 20% Godzilla. Let's be real. And then I didn't like the second one because the humans were very boring. And they did the thing
well, I also they all the fight scenes in the second one were like in shadow. You know,
yeah,
it was
this
one of those
one,
where it's like, why aren't you showing this?
This movie a lot of it took place at night because that's when Hedorah would come out. But you could see what was going on. Where in the American Godzilla movie, when they're like fighting in the snow, I don't even know what's happening and I don't care. So it's like, pull back, guys. Pull back. These are kings of the monsters. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
But I mean, King Kong, and I didn't like King Kong because I don't even know. I feel like they all follow the same thing. Where I hate when Godzilla's like a hero because it doesn't make any sense. I like when he's just a beast who likes to fuck shit up, and most of the time it happens to be another monster. But sometimes it happens to be a human town or a girl who's got a broken leg. Just people he wants to kill. He doesn't care. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'm excited. I always like to see.
Yeah,
King
I mean,
Kong.
it'll be interesting to see how they do it, and obviously too, it's funny because it's like, well, are you gonna size up King Kong because he's like a third of the size of Godzilla, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah. And he's like a big monkey and he has no powers. It is kind of that thing where it's like, oh, King Kong, we're going to make him bigger to fight Godzilla. It's like, okay, you're going to do anything else? Because Godzilla can shoot fire out of his face. and you can't jump on him because he has giant spikes on his back.
Yeah, there's definitely... let's just say I want to see it, but I'm cautiously optimistic. You know?
Yeah, it's that thing where like even the bad Toho Godzilla movies are still very interesting. Where the bad Godzilla American movies are just kind of boring blockbusters. Where it's harder to ignore bad human characters when they're in American audiences. Because like with Toho, it's like, okay, this was made not for me. This was made for a Japanese audience. With American Godzilla, it's like, no, this was made for me. These shouldn't be this terrible of characters.
Yeah, I still don't remember. I just remember there was a terrorist group fighting climate change, but there was a lot of like backstory and like double crosses to that I just did not get.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, she's really on their side, but he's really not on their side. It's like, I'm not following this.
Yeah, it's like, hey, get to the Godzilla because I don't give a shit about these guys. It's also like, I think it's that thing where it's like, you can't really help Godzilla. So you guys are just like standing around watching him do shit, which is fine. But when they're like supposed to be like realistic, quote unquote, characters who are dealing with grief, because apparently that's all fucking blockbuster movies can do, I don't care that much. Like, make them have fun. Or make them turn into skeletons. Your choice. But do one or the other.
If there was a little bit more silliness to it, I think it would help. Well, I don't know, because then the Matthew Broderick one's also bad. So
yeah, that one's just silly.
Yeah, maybe they just shouldn't do it. Just tell Americans to stop doing it, and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, I feel like maybe just I don't know, just like have like the characters be part of it, as opposed to just kind of looking. I don't know. But I'm excited for it. I'll watch it. And so yeah, I think King Ghidorah. Watch them on HBO Max. There's a bunch of Godzilla movies. You should watch them all if you like Godzilla, and even if you don't, just watch them. And put the Mexican subtitles on so you can the Spanish subtitles on so you can experience the way young Andrew experienced it, going through 3 different levels because it was it was a Japanese movie with the English dubs, and underneath it was the Spanish subtitles. So it was quite possibly the most international movie that I could have seen at the time. No one's mouth matched in those fucking things. But yeah, watch them.
This one is good. It's just subtitle on HBO though. I don't know if you could put on the dubs, but I assume it's worse.
You can't because one of us was like, I probably shouldn't be reading all these subtitles.
But it didn't work.
But it didn't work. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a short episode, but it was fun. It was a fun time, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're talking about another movie. We'll see which one it is. But also, have you checked out our deep dive on the 5 hottest hotties? The 5 R-rated movies that were turned into cartoons. Check it out. And have you checked out our short film wellness check? The award-winning short film about who's really on the other side of that Zoom call. It's appropriate and it's topical. The best type of horror.
Say, not to spoil your 5 cartoons thing, but one of them's Rambo, right? I assume because that's like an infamous one. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about like the parallels, how like the first Rambo is about like, oh, here's what PTSD and like the Vietnam War did to this man, and then all the ones after that are like, actually he's just a cool hero. So it's like they kind of did the Godzilla where it's like he's cool, make sequels where he fights bad guys.
Yeah, surprisingly, guys, this is not a spoiler, but the cartoons never bring up his PTSD. I feel like Rambo's a good series to compare with Godzilla because they do get more cartoony. Even like the message, because in Rambo 2, it's still like pretty anti-war and anti-military, but in a way more cartoony way, where in the first one, like Rambo has flashbacks and a mental breakdown, but in the second one, he has like a knife and he's holding the bureaucrat and he's like, you better do the right thing for these people, Ted Cruz, because if you don't, I'm going to kill you. And then he does it and he's like, you're right. I will help the veterans instead of just helping the war machine. And it's like, yeah. I mean, it's still technically the same message. It's just told a lot funnier.
Like it's still the right path, but it's like the Barty version of it. Yeah.
Also, I realized that I have to start giving real outs for the YouTube. So, guys, that was Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Watch it. It's on HBO Max. It's a ton of fun, and it's not that long, so check it out. Especially as you get ready for Kong versus Godzilla.
And also to get ready for the devastation climate change will wreak on the planet in the coming decades. This will be a good primer.
If we do a remake, you know what? Climate change, I feel, would be a lot easier to spot if it was a giant shit monster. But yeah, so check it out. And then we'll see you guys next week on the Bomb Squad.